In the quiet suburban streets of Maplewood Estates, life seemed peaceful until Nathan Cole's simple parking mistake turned into a confrontation with the neighborhood's most feared figure, HOA President Linda Harris. What started as an innocent mistake soon escalated into a shocking act of vandalism that would change the neighborhood forever. Watch as the story unfolds, showing how one man's stand against injustice exposed the corruption within a community, bringing down a tyrant and giving hope to those oppressed for far too long. Nathan Cole had always believed that after leaving his tumultuous past behind, a quiet life in a peaceful suburban neighborhood was all he needed. The promise of Maplewood Estates was simple, a place where he could enjoy the peace and quiet he had fought for during his years in the Navy. But his new beginning quickly became marred by an encounter with someone he never expected to cause trouble. The president of the Homeowners Association, Linda Harris, Nathan, now in his early 30s, had recently settled into his new home. The house was perfect for him, modest but comfortable, with a front yard and a driveway for his beloved Chevy Silverado. It was a quiet neighborhood, just far enough from the bustling city to feel like an escape. He looked forward to sipping coffee in the mornings and enjoying his evenings without the stress of military life. However, the first week in his new home already hinted that this place might not be the sanctuary he'd imagined. Linda Harris, the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA rules, was as ubiquitous as the well-maintained lawns in Maplewood Estates. The community was obsessed with rules. Driveway decorations had to be within strict guidelines. Fences could not exceed a certain height, and lawns had to be perfectly manicured, in a place where nothing ever went wrong. Linda made sure that even the smallest infraction didn't go unnoticed. But, in Nathan's mind, he figured as long as he kept to himself and followed the rules, he'd be left alone. Then came that January morning. A massive snowstorm had hit the area, leaving the streets blocked and the driveway in front of Nathan's home completely covered in snow. His usual parking spot was buried, and with the snowplows still nowhere in sight. Nathan parked his truck on the edge of the street, just slightly closer to Linda's driveway. He made sure to leave enough space for her to still get in and out, with every intention of moving the truck once the snow cleared. It seemed like a minor issue after all. The driveway wasn't blocked, and the street was nearly impassable anyway. What Nathan didn't expect was the way his simple mistake would snowball into something far more dangerous. Minutes later, he was sitting at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee when he heard a knock at the door. When he opened it, there she was, Linda Harris, standing in a bathrobe, her face a storm cloud of anger. "You're blocking my driveway," she snapped, her eyes wide with indignation. Nathan was taken aback, confused. "There's plenty of space for you to park." "Linda, the snow's just a mess right now. I'll move it once the plow comes through." But Linda wasn't interested in reason. Her face twisted into a scowl as she shoved a finger into his chest. "You're breaking the rules. I don't care about your excuses. Move it now, or I'll fine you." Nathan was stunned. A simple mistake had become a matter of rules and regulations, and Linda wasn't about to let him off easy. He tried to stay calm, knowing that arguing wasn't going to help. "Linda, I'll move it, but I'm not doing it on your command," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm not causing any trouble here." Her eyes narrowed, and without a word, she stormed off, muttering about neighbors who couldn't follow simple rules. Nathan shook his head, watching as she disappeared into her house. He couldn't believe how seriously she had taken such a trivial issue. But it didn't end there. No sooner had he turned to walk back inside than he heard a faint sound. It was a hissing noise. Turning around, Nathan's eyes widened in shock as he saw Linda, still wearing her bathrobe, holding a steaming pot of boiling water in her hands. Before he could even react, she poured the scalding water directly onto the hood of his truck. The sound of sizzling metal and the acrid smell of burning paint filled the air. Nathan's heart sank as he watched in disbelief. Linda walked away, a smug smile on her face, as if she had just done him a favor. Nathan stood there frozen for a moment, too shocked to speak. His truck, his only means of transportation, was now damaged. The water had bubbled the paint, causing steam to rise from the engine, and Nathan realized that his once pristine vehicle was now scarred, all over a parking spot. His neighbors, drawn by the commotion, had already started filming the incident on their phones. Nathan pulled out his own phone and started recording the damage. "This is insane," he muttered to himself, trying to process what had just happened. He immediately called the police, determined to file a report. The officers arrived shortly afterward, and Linda, who had by then returned to her home, tried to play the victim, claiming she had only been trying to melt the ice off Nathan's truck. But her excuses fell flat. The evidence, the witnesses, the photos, and the video footage spoke for itself. Linda's smug demeanor faltered as the police took her away. The residents of Maplewood Estates, who had lived under Linda's thumb for years, watched in stunned silence as she was escorted to a squad car in handcuffs. No one had ever imagined that the untouchable HOA president would be caught in such a brazen act of vandalism. Nathan didn't feel any satisfaction at first. The damage to his truck would cost him a lot to fix, and the whole ordeal had left him shaken. But the weight of what had just happened began to sink in. He hadn't just stood up for himself. He had stood up for the entire neighborhood. For years, Linda had ruled with an iron fist, punishing anyone who stepped out of line. No one had dared to challenge her. But now, she had gone too far. 3 weeks later, Linda stood before a judge, facing charges of criminal mischief and destruction of property. The courthouse was packed with residents of Maplewood Estates, eager to see justice served. Nathan, though still dealing with the aftermath of his damaged truck, felt a quiet sense of victory. He had helped expose Linda's abuse of power. The court found Linda guilty, and she was fined heavily, placed on probation, and banned from holding any position on the HOA board for the next 5 years. As she sat in disbelief, Nathan couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction. The same woman who had made everyone's life miserable was now paying the price for her actions. For the residents of Maplewood Estates, the news spread like wildfire. Linda's downfall marked the beginning of a new chapter. No longer would they be subjected to her overbearing rules. The tyranny of the HOA president had ended, and for the first time in years, they could breathe easy. As for Nathan, he had won more than just a battle over a parking spot. He had exposed a corruption that had long been buried under the weight of fear and intimidation. The neighborhood was finally free to live in peace, without the constant threat of fines and harassment. The memory of Linda's arrest lingered, but it wasn't just a reminder of her downfall. It was a symbol of the power of standing up to injustice. Nathan had shown that even the smallest of actions could bring down the mightiest of oppressors. And in the end, Maplewood Estates would never be the same.